Hey, welcome to Unshaved. I'm Takesha, and this podcast came to be simply because I wanted to archive conversations between me and my mother. And because we've talked about pursuing a creative project together for a long time now, I just figured starting a podcast would kind of fit the bill for both. Our lives and relationship have had many twists, turns, highs, and lows, and the way we've gotten through them always started with raw conversations. We're consistently pursuing a deeper understanding of not only each other and our relationship, but also of ourselves. If the topics and conversations explored in this space help you to navigate your journey in any way, then that's even better. So whether it's just myself or if I'm joined by my mom or other guests, you can expect content that is explorative, honest, and maybe even just a little bit outside the lines. Welcome to Unshaved. Thank you to those of you who are returning listeners, as well as to those of you who are tuning in for the first time. My next guest, Darryl, has been friends with my mother since I was a teenager, which was when we met. He is a huge supporter of the podcast, and he'll typically call me each week to share his thoughts about the episodes as they're released. I believe we were discussing thoughts on the episode If You Can't Laugh at Yourself, and as we were wrapping up the call, he shared a quote that came to his mind, which goes, "Acceptance is the answer to all of my questions." I think acceptance is definitely a great place to start with anything. And the more I reflected on it, I thought it would be cool for us to dig into this a little bit more on this platform. Thank you for being here with me today, Darryl. I appreciate that you wanted to add some of the insight and wisdom that some of your lessons in life have afforded you with our podcast. So when were you introduced to the idea that acceptance is the answer to all of your questions, and what impact did that have on you when you first heard it?
Well, when I first heard it, it was like I heard it in this fellowship that I'm a part of, and so when I heard it, I thought about it, and I pondered on it, and I was like, wow. So that's what it is, huh? All these time and all these years that things has been going I could say to the left. And I thought about it once I heard that term is because I didn't have no acceptance at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So as time went on, I kind of like understood what they were saying about it, about the acceptance piece. Like, especially if you don't have no control over certain situation, ain't no sense you trying to like worry about it or try to change it and all that kind of stuff. I just say, well, you might as well just accept it as it is because that's what it is. And we mentioned the other day too about the other quote about the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what it puts.
Yeah, and that's Serenity Prayer. And then I learned about that uh, uh, basically almost around about the same time, because they often use that prayer to close meetings up and stuff like that, right? So I was like, wow. So
Sorry, I just wanted to interject.
go ahead.
Everybody listening may not be familiar with the Serenity Prayer. Was introduced to it at a very young age. My father gave me a coin that he had received, and it said it on it, and it really stuck out to me. And it's one of my favorite quotes. So it goes, "God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference." And so, like you said, there's just a lot of things that we don't have control over necessarily in life, but ourselves. What we can control is our response to things. So when I think about the acceptance part that you're talking about, I realize that if we aren't accepting, we're just essentially in resistance.
Right, right. And through my journey in life, when it came to people talk to me about changing, the kind of lifestyle and the behavior I was living. And that's what they used to often say, what make it hard to change is when you resist the change. And for real, a lot of stuff that I was going through, for real, it was kind of like a learned behavior because I ain't learned none of that stuff in my household. It was like when I got outside the household, and then my experience with going to prison and stuff like that, I picked up a lot of learned behaviors, like you know, this is a man supposed to be like, or just I just picked up a lot of learned behaviors, and they just lingered on and got embedded in me for so many years. So, I was going through a lot of what can I say, a lot of false pride. I built this person up to be something that I wasn't. And it all because of what I learned and what I heard and what I seen from the kind of lifestyle I was living. But early on, like I think early on, like because when I was coming up, right, I never really knew who my biological father was, but I had a stepfather that had raised me from 6 months on up, really until the day he passed. So I think around about the age of 12 or 13 when I basically found out he wasn't my biological father. That's when I couldn't accept that because I always wanted to know who my real father was. You know what I'm saying? So to me, when it came to the acceptance piece, I don't think I had accepted that because I had the attitude like, well, he and my father, he can't tell me what to do and stuff like that. And not only that, then I think at that point I started having problems with authority figures. You know what I'm saying? So, it was just like an attitude like, he and my father, he can't tell me what to do. And at the time, I ain't realized until I got older, like, even though he wasn't my biological father, but he still took care of me as if I was his own, you know what I'm saying? Because, he took care of me, raised me, and all that stuff. And like I said, until the day he passed. So I just had to find, to get acceptance with a lot of stuff that I experienced coming up or through my journey in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when it came to dealing with the police and stuff like that, because I used to be like, I used to have a thing for the police. I used to like police. But once I learned that acceptance piece, I used to be like, okay, well, if I break the law, they supposed to lock me up because that's their job, right? But, at one time, I used to hate the police, you know what I'm saying? But now I understand that's their job. When you break the law, they supposed to lock you up. And another experience in my life when it came to that drug addiction piece, right? Now it's a thing where we used to say that we're addict, you know. I used to say I was an addict, but I never accepted until, my life had went to a down spiral. I mean, real bad. And then I really had to realize the fact that, accept the fact that, yeah, man, you really is an addict. You know what I'm saying? I used to say it out my mouth. I used to admit it, but I never accepted it. So I think that's why it took me so long to get to the point where I'm at now, because I could never accept it. You know what I'm saying? Because uh, I used to compare myself to other people that like was a little kind of worse off and stuff like that. But and when they got to the point where I was like, yeah, things I was doing to acquire or obtain the drugs and all that stuff. So I said, yeah, I had to accept the fact that I was an addict. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, uh,
So,
I'm,
so you
go ahead.
mentioned quite a few things here. So we're talking about acceptance. It brought you to remembering or acknowledging the acceptance with your stepfather, prison, police, authorities, drugs, and accepting that you were an addict. So I was just wondering if there's something that streamlines all of these different experiences that occurred in your life that you can identify that brought you to the place of accepting? Was it accumulation of all of these things, or was it one specific thing that kind of led you down the thought path and the realization of accepting all of these things that you had realized in your past you hadn't accepted?
Well, well, to be honest with you, I think what brought me to that point is on my last drug run, I had OD, right? So when I came out of that, I left DC. I left DC for about 6 months. I went to North Carolina because at that particular time my mom was staying in North Carolina, and she was kind of like real sick at the time. And then my sponsor uh lived in North Carolina, so I packed up, I went to North Carolina, and it's me and my little brother. And we was down there to take care of my mom because her health was really declining and everything at the time. So I was down there help take care of her, and at the same time, I was down there going to meetings and getting with my sponsor, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to sleep in a little bedroom. My brother had a bedroom, then my mom had her bedroom. Yeah, and so me and my brother was down there taking care of my younger brother, and at the same time I was down there and got plugged in with my sponsor as far as going to meetings and stuff like that. But then I used to go in a little room. I used to sleep in at night, and I used to start talking to God like I'm talking to you now because they always used to say, "Man, you got to build a relationship with the God of your understanding,"
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason, I always used to hear about God through my mother or my grandmother or something like that. So I was saying you got to get a God of your own. So that's what I did, and once I did that, I stayed down there for like 6 months. you know. And then and at the time I was there, it started occurring to me like, about the acceptance piece far as, I had to accept the fact that I was an addict. I had to accept the fact that, you know, uh that I can't live life being an addict. I just gotta live life on life terms. So I had to and own the fact that I was an addict, man, and I had to accept that, and I think that was the turning point for the acceptance piece that really kicked in, even though like all the other past experiences I was saying about acceptance, them was just things that I thought of that I ain't have acceptance with early on, but that one tragic moment where I almost lost my life uh, really brought me to that point that you asked about with that acceptance piece.
And I could understand why that would have such an impact and be such a pivotal moment in evaluation, taking a look at things in your life and figuring out, is this the way I really want my life to go? Is this how I want to leave? What can I do better? So I think that, with acceptance, we have to accept that in all of our experiences, we are the common denominator. And there are things that we have the power to change, and there are some things that we don't have the power to change. And those things we accept. And in not being in resistance to those things, we can find that ultimately what works out is for our best, right?
Right.
I'm
And then
No,
mhm.
I was just going to say that, I'm glad that, you didn't lose your life in an overdose, and that you have the opportunity to rethink and change your life, and, just kind of evaluate things and how you want to move forward. Because you talked about prison and things like that. I know that you were saying that these were just things that came back to your mind, but I was just wondering, was your addiction a theme at that time as well? Or were those just other things that you had to come to terms with in your life as far as?
No, I was still using at the time, but it wasn't as bad. You know what I'm saying? It got bad over a period of time. it got a little bad over a period of time. You know, I'm talking about with the heroin, with the crack cocaine. Then early on it was PCP. And before that, it was marijuana and cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? It just was a progression, and that's how it happens. You know, once you get in it, and you like it, you keep going, and that's how it progresses. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it happened for me. So
So was
but
that just
yeah.
out of a recreational thing, or was that something that you realized that you were kind of running away from and not accepting in your life and finding something else as an outlet or some type of relief
Well,
from
I
it?
mean, like, I often hear people say certain situations drove them to using drugs, like, maybe been a dysfunctional family, maybe been some abuse and neglect, or, something like that. But I didn't come up with experiencing none of that, you know what I'm saying? But what happened is I grew up in Southeast DC, and where I lived at, it was like an open air drug market. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to look out my bedroom window and see all this stuff going on at the time. And I was just curious, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if it was any underlying issues I was going through at the time. If it is, I couldn't recognize it at the time. But I was like more so curious about it. So that what made me start doing it. As far as
Okay.
the drug thing, that what made me start doing it.
Okay.
And then it just went from one to the next, one to the next. You know what I'm saying? Because even like when it came to the heroin, I never did heroin on the street. I started doing that when I got locked up because that's what everybody else was doing. So, and then it just went on for years and years and years and years. And then to that last point, you know, because even when I had that little overdose and everything, and I came out the hospital, I was staying over Marshall house a couple of days trying to recoup,
Mm-hmm.
and man, and so when and even when it comes to the acceptance piece, man, I got to the point like, when I used to be impulsive. I used to be real impulsive. Like if somebody say something, I was quick to, jump down their throat or ready to do something to them and all that. But now, today, I just accept people where they at. You know what I'm saying? Like they can say what they want, they can do what they want, and I just accept them for who they are. Because at one point in time, I used to be like, you know, you say something, I gotta say something, or you do something, I gotta do something.
Because you
But
feel
now,
disrespected by them, right? You would feel disrespected.
uh, yeah, in a way, disrespected or uh like if I feel like they said something, yeah, out the way, or you know what I'm saying. But now I don't do that. I just accept people where they at. You know, it just is who they are. So that's how I accept them. You know what I'm saying? You can't change nobody. People got to change themselves.
I appreciate you for making time to listen in to this episode of Unshaved. Thank you. I genuinely hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have questions or suggestions for topics to explore, please email unshaved.podcast@gmail.com. Be sure to indicate if you'd like to be mentioned if your feedback or questions are addressed. I take it that you've enjoyed the content since you've made it this far. Depending on the platform you're hearing this on, let me know so we can really engage with one another. So drop a comment, click the star, download, subscribe, applaud, click the like button, and share this with others. Unshaved is on Facebook and Instagram. Also, you can show the show some love through donations on Anchor. Last but not least, remember you can turn on your notifications so you'll know when we're back with new episodes. Till then, let's continue to live with love and light.